The manila envelope sat in the bottom of my underwear drawer, hidden beneath the silk slips I hadn't worn since my daughter's wedding. It wasn't much, just a regular 9x12 envelope, slightly worn at the corners. But when my husband, Thomas, came home that Wednesday evening and found me standing in the kitchen, staring at nothing, he asked why I looked so pale, why dinner wasn't started, why I seemed distracted. I told him I had a headache. But that envelope contained something he could never know about. Not yet. It held copies of documents that would change everything. It started the way these things always do. So gradually, you don't notice you're being erased until you look in the mirror and can't recognize yourself anymore. We'd been married 42 years when Thomas sold his construction company. I thought selling the business would give us freedom, time to visit our grandchildren in Seattle, time to finally take that trip to Italy we'd talked about for decades. Instead, it gave him something new to manage, me. Catherine, the heat is set to 68. Do you know what the electric bill was last month? Where did you go today? The car has 14 extra miles on it. Who called the house phone? I saw you deleted a voicemail. What are you hiding? At first, I told myself he was adjusting. 45 years of running crews, managing budgets, controlling projects. Of course, he needed to control something. Men don't transition well into retirement. That's what my friend Denise said. Give him time, he'll find a hobby. But Thomas's hobby became me. He took over our finances entirely, claiming that since he'd always handled the business money, he should handle ours too. He closed the joint checking account and opened a new one, only his name on it. He gave me a household debit card with a $300 monthly limit. When I went over, even by $20, he'd print out the statement and go through every charge with a red pen. $45 at Target. There's a Dollar General 2 blocks away. Why do you need salon shampoo? $18 for lunch with Denise. We have food here. $12 at the bookstore. The library is free, Catherine. I stopped meeting Denise for lunch. I stopped going to my Thursday morning Bible study because there was always a coffee fee, always someone's birthday with a group gift. I stopped volunteering at the community center where I'd taught ESL classes for 15 years. It was easier than explaining why I couldn't chip in $10 for supplies, why I couldn't join the ladies for dinner after class. Thomas started monitoring everything. He checked the mail before I could get to it. He insisted on having access to my email to help me stay organized. He knew my Facebook password because he'd set it up for me. He tracked my location through the phone he'd bought me, the one on his plan. For safety, he said. What if something happens to you? I was 67 years old, and I had to account for every moment of every day. The house became my world, and Thomas was the sun it revolved around. When he played golf on Tuesdays and Thursdays, those 4 hours were my only freedom. But even then, I was home waiting when he returned, always ready with a report of what I'd done. Laundry, vacuuming, cooking. You don't need to work anymore, he'd said when I retired at 65 from my job as a school secretary. I'll take care of everything. And he did take care of everything. He took care of my paycheck, my independence, my friendships, my voice. He did it so gradually that I didn't realize I was disappearing until there was almost nothing left of Catherine Miller, just Catherine's wife, Catherine's housekeeper, Catherine's ghost. The breaking point came on a Wednesday morning in April. I was standing in the pharmacy section at CVS, crying over blood pressure medication. My prescription had run out, and the refill was $87. I had $43 left on my card for the month, and it was only the 14th. I needed groceries. I needed gas. I needed toilet paper. I stood there for 25 minutes, trying to decide if I should skip the medication or skip eating properly for 2 weeks. My doctor had been very clear. This medication was important. My blood pressure had been dangerously high at my last visit. An older woman, maybe 70, stopped her cart next to mine. "Honey, are you all right?" I nodded automatically, wiping my eyes with a tissue from my purse. "I'm fine, just being silly." But she didn't move. She looked at my hands, shaking as I held the prescription slip. She looked at my clothes, expensive once but now years old. She looked at my purse, a Coach bag from 2010, the leather cracking at the handles. "My name is Helen," she said quietly. "I volunteer at the Senior Resource Center on Magnolia Avenue. I want to give you something." She reached into her purse and pulled out a card. Helen Martinez, MSW, a phone number, an address. "I don't need." I started to say. But she placed the card in my hand and closed my fingers around it. Keep it anyway, just in case. We help women with all kinds of things. Financial planning, legal advice, sometimes just someone to talk to. I bought the medication with my card and charged the remaining $44 to credit. Thomas would see it. There would be questions. But I couldn't go 2 weeks without blood pressure medication. Not at my age. Not with my numbers. That night, he saw the charge. He sat me down at the kitchen table with the credit card statement pulled up on his laptop. Catherine, we talked about this. The card is for emergencies only. My medication was an emergency. I didn't have enough on the debit card. You should have told me. I would have given you cash. You were golfing. The pharmacy closes at 6. I needed it. His jaw tightened. This is exactly why I manage the money. You panic and make impulsive decisions. $87 for medication? Did you even ask about generic? It is generic. Did you use your insurance? Yes, Thomas. That's the price with insurance. He shook his head, closing the laptop. We'll discuss your budget next month. Clearly $300 isn't enough if you can't plan properly. I said nothing. I just went upstairs to our bedroom, pulled out the card Helen had given me, and hid it in my Bible, the one Thomas never opened. The next Wednesday, while Thomas was at golf, I walked to Magnolia Avenue. The Senior Resource Center was in a converted church, warm and welcoming with volunteers at the front desk. I asked for Helen Martinez. She came out 5 minutes later, her face lighting up with recognition. Catherine, I'm so glad you came. We sat in a small office with plants on the windowsill and comfortable chairs. Helen didn't rush me. She made tea and waited while I tried to figure out where to begin. The words came out in a flood. 42 years of marriage, 10 years of gradual control, the closed accounts, the $300 budget, the tracking, the isolation, the shame of crying in CVS over prescription medication. I know this sounds ridiculous, I said. He's never hit me. He's never even yelled at me. He just controls everything. Catherine, Helen said firmly, what you're describing is financial abuse. It's a form of domestic violence, and it's serious. I started crying then. Deep, heaving sobs that I'd been holding back for years. Helen handed me tissues and waited. Have you thought about leaving? She asked gently. I can't. I don't have any money. I don't have anywhere to go. My daughter lives in Seattle with her family. I can't burden her. My son is in the Navy, deployed. I haven't talked to my sister in 6 years because Thomas always found reasons why we shouldn't visit her. Catherine. Helen's voice was kind but firm. You can leave. It's not easy, but you can. And we can help you. Over the next 8 weeks, I visited Helen every Wednesday. We made a plan. A real plan. First, I needed documents. Birth certificate, social security card, marriage license, bank statements, deed to the house, Thomas's tax returns. He kept everything in a locked file box in his closet. It took me 2 weeks to find where he hid the key, taped under his side of the mattress. On the third Wednesday, while Thomas was golfing, I carried that file box to the UPS store 3 miles from our house. I wore a hat and sunglasses like I was a criminal. My hands shook so hard the clerk asked if I needed help opening the lid. I copied everything. Birth certificates, social security cards, marriage license, the deed showing both our names on the house, bank statements showing $380,000 in savings I didn't even know we had, his pension documents showing $4,200 monthly income. I put everything back before he came home. Second, I needed money. Helen connected me with a lawyer named Rachel Nguyen, who specialized in elder law and domestic abuse cases. Rachel was young, probably 35, with kind eyes and a steel spine. She explained my rights. Community property state. I was entitled to half of everything. I could petition for temporary spousal support during separation, but first, I needed to be safe. Do you have anywhere to go? Rachel asked. That's when Helen told me about Grace House, a transitional home for women over 50, run by a woman named Judith, a former family court judge who'd seen too many women with nowhere to go. 6 bedrooms in a large craftsman house. $100 a week. Or free if you couldn't pay. Safe? Anonymous. I didn't have $100. I had $43 on my debit card, and the shame of being a 67-year-old woman with no money of her own. "The first month is free anyway," Judith said when I met her. "After that, we'll figure it out." She gave me a room to hold. "You just tell me when you're ready." The envelope came from Rachel's office. She'd prepared everything: petition for legal separation, petition for temporary support, restraining order if I needed it. All I had to do was sign. I brought the papers home in that manila envelope and hid them in my underwear drawer. For 3 weeks, I couldn't bring myself to sign them. 42 years of marriage, 2 children, 4 grandchildren. Was I really going to throw it all away? Then one Thursday, Thomas came home from golf and announced we were selling my mother's china. The set she'd given me when I got married. The set I'd promised my daughter. "It's just sitting in the cabinet collecting dust," he said. "I found a collector who'll pay $2,000 for it. That's my mother's china. I'm giving it to Sarah. Sarah lives in a 1-bedroom apartment. Where is she going to put china for 12? We need the money." "Need it for what?" "You just showed me bank statements with $380,000. His face changed, went cold. "You went through my files. Our files. My name is on that account too, Thomas. How dare you go through my personal papers?" "Personal? We're married. That's our money." He stepped closer. He'd never hit me, but in that moment, I saw it in his eyes. The rage, the need to control, the realization that I was questioning him. "You will not sell my mother's china," I said quietly. "That's not your decision to make." I went upstairs, pulled the envelope from my drawer, and signed every paper. My hands didn't shake. I was done. Rachel filed everything on a Monday. We picked a Thursday for service. Thomas had a dentist appointment at 1:30, a long appointment for a root canal. He'd be gone for at least 3 hours. Wednesday night, I couldn't sleep. I lay next to Thomas in the bed we'd shared for 42 years, listening to him breathe, and felt nothing. No love, no anger, just a deep, bone-tired relief that tomorrow it would be over. Thursday morning, I made him breakfast like always: scrambled eggs, wheat toast, orange juice. He read the news on his iPad and complained about gas prices. I washed the dishes. I kissed his cheek when he left for the dentist. He barely acknowledged it. I waited 10 minutes to be sure he wouldn't turn around. Then I pulled out the suitcase I'd hidden in the guest room closet. I'd been packing it slowly for 2 weeks. 1 pair of jeans, 2 sweaters, underwear, socks, my mother's jewelry box that Thomas didn't know I'd kept hidden, photos of my children from before we were married, my father's watch, my grandmother's Bible, 42 years of marriage, and everything that mattered fit in one carry-on suitcase. Judith's friend Maria was waiting outside in her sedan. She'd volunteered to drive me because Helen was with another client and Judith couldn't leave the house. "Ready?" Maria asked. She was maybe 65, a retired nurse with steady hands and steady eyes. I put my suitcase in her trunk. I looked back at the house where I'd lived for 38 years, the rose bushes I'd planted, the window boxes I'd filled with geraniums every spring, the porch where my children had learned to ride bikes. "Ready," I said. Grace House was in a quiet neighborhood on the east side, the kind of place you'd never notice unless you were looking for it. Judith met us at the door and showed me to my room. It was small, with a twin bed, a dresser, and a window that looked out on a garden. There was a reading chair in the corner and a small bookshelf with donated books. "Bathrooms shared, down the hall," Judith said. "Breakfast is at 7:30, dinner at 6, kitchen's open anytime. There are 3 other women here right now. Good people. You'll be safe here, Catherine." After she left, I sat on that twin bed and cried, not from sadness, from relief so profound it felt like breathing after being underwater for years. Thomas called my cell phone 3 times that afternoon and evening. I'd left the phone on the kitchen counter, Rachel told me later, when she went with a police escort to retrieve my things from the house. He'd called Helen's office 22 times. He'd called the police claiming I was missing until Rachel's paralegal informed them I'd left voluntarily. He'd called our daughter Sarah in Seattle. Sarah called Rachel, who told her I was safe. Sarah cried and said she'd been worried about me for years, but didn't know how to help. The process server delivered the papers to Thomas at the house at 4:30 that Thursday. According to the server's notes, Thomas tried to refuse them, claimed it was a mistake, that someone had manipulated me. The server explained that wasn't how it worked and left the papers on the porch. The legal process took 7 months. Thomas fought everything. He claimed I'd abandoned him, that I was having a mental breakdown, that I'd stolen documents from his files, that the $380,000 in savings was his business money, not marital assets. But Rachel had the documentation, the closed accounts, the $300 monthly limit, the tracking apps on my phone, the testimony from my doctor about how my blood pressure had been dangerously high for 2 years, the statement from the CVS pharmacist who remembered me crying over medication costs. Judge Marianne Foster didn't buy Thomas's story. She'd been on the family court bench for 20 years and had seen enough financial abusers to recognize one. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in November, 7 months after I'd left. I got half of everything, the $380,000 in savings, half the value of the house, which Thomas would have to refinance or sell to pay me, half his pension, $2,100 a month, spousal support of $1,800 monthly until my full Social Security kicked in at 70. I got my freedom. I stayed at Grace House even after I could afford my own place. I liked the community. I liked having dinner with women who understood. I liked having Judith's wisdom available when I needed it. And honestly, after 42 years of living with Thomas, I liked having my own room with a door I could lock. Sarah flew down from Seattle the week after the divorce was final. We sat in Judith's garden and cried and talked for 6 hours straight. She told me about her kids, her job, her marriage to a man who respected her. I told her about the community college class I'd enrolled in, creative writing, something I'd always wanted to try. "Why didn't you call me?" Sarah asked. "I would have helped. We have a spare room. You could have come to us." I was ashamed, I said. And after a while I forgot that I could. My sister Patricia flew in from Arizona 2 weeks later. We hadn't seen each other in 6 years. 6 years of missed phone calls, returned letters, blocked visits. We sat in a coffee shop and filled in all those lost years. She showed me pictures of her grandchildren. I showed her the short story I'd written for my class. "I tried to reach you," she said. "So many times. He always said you were busy or sick or didn't want visitors." "I know. I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. You're here now. That's what matters." Last Wednesday, I started volunteering at the Senior Resource Center. Helen had asked if I'd be willing to help other women the way she'd helped me. I sit in that same office where we had tea, and I listen to women tell me they can't leave. They don't have money. They don't have anywhere to go. They're too old to start over. And I tell them, "You can leave. It won't be easy. But you can. And we can help you." Helen hugs me every time I come in. "I'm so proud of you, Catherine." I'm proud of me too. 67 years old, and I finally learned that it's never too late to save your own life. That dignity isn't something someone gives you. It's something you take back. That asking for help isn't weakness. It's courage. I still have that manila envelope. It sits in my dresser drawer at Grace House, empty now except for the final divorce decree. Sometimes I look at it and remember the woman who hid it in her underwear drawer, who was too afraid to sign the papers, who thought 42 years meant she had to stay forever. I want to tell her, "You did it. You survived. You're free." But she knows. She knew all along. She was just waiting for the right Wednesday to finally believe it.